Hi, guys.
Hello.
Gagan, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Super.
Connectivity issues. So I'm logging in and out simultaneously from two different laptops. So yes.
Okay.
May I start?
Yes.
All right. A very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for registering and being part of this webinar this evening. We have a fantastic topic today, which is Sommellerie, a way of life. This webinar is our third webinar with Bosco College of Hospitality Studies, and today we have collaborated with IWBS, that's the Institute of Wine and Beverage Studies. We have a fantastic panel this evening. I'm going to start off with my first panelist from IWBS, that's Mr. Magandeep Singh. Now, Mr. Magandeep Singh is India's first French certified sommelier from University du Vin in France. Mr. Magandeep Singh is this font of knowledge, and apart from being a television host, a columnist, he has also written two books, one being Wine Wisdom, and the second one being The Indian Spirit. Now, very few people know this, but Mr. Magandeep Singh has actually mentored a lot of us. All right, so back in the day when you did not have internet so easily available, I think I would take this privilege of sending him an email with all my queries, all my questions, all my doubts, and he would actually spend so much of his time replying to each of those emails so diligently. And I thank you very much, Mr. Magandeep Singh, for doing that. My second panelist is Mr. Gagan Sharma, who comes with a host of qualifications, from doing his master's in business from Australia to completing the very reputed diploma with WSET and being a certified trainer, to then going on to doing his CMS and is a certified sommelier from the Court of Master Sommeliers. So today we are in very good company. I would also like to introduce to you my co-host for this evening, my HOD, Ms. Annabelle Rodriguez. And ma'am, thank you very much for letting us host this webinar, especially a job profile like that of a sommelier, where one always believes that a sommelier's job is only about pouring wines and storing wines, but there's a lot more to it that we are going to get to know about today. So I think it's safe to say, number one, that we have a fantastic panel. Number two, that we have wine on our mind. And I think without further delay, ma'am, I think we shall let this happy hour begin.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Magandeep and Gagan, both for making this possible. Thank you, Andre, for coordinating it, and my entire webinar team that is doing the back end, like Chef Melroy and Roma ma'am and Susan and Prasad. Thank you so much. You know, we are waiting to hear about what this way of life is. Some of us have been lucky enough to have met you all and met sommeliers around the world, but for our students, and especially the ones who are going to join us and the ones that are already in our institute, we are waiting with bated breath. I would love to say with a big glass of wine too, waiting to hear from both of you. Thank you very much. So,
should I take over the screen, ma'am? Should I project?
Yes.
Please do that,
Yes.
Gagan. Please
Yes.
do that.
We cannot hear. Yes, now we can hear you.
Super. So I was saying thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez, for having us here. Andre, thank you for such an eloquent introduction. I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. And as is the order that age comes before beauty, I will go first, and Gagan will aptly follow. So we just thought we'd talk about what, who, how. This is the idea of sommellerie and what a sommelier actually does and how it all entails. Guys, for the rest of you, if you have questions, leave them on the chat and we can take them up later. We'll be happy to take all questions. That's not a problem. So guys, it just off the top of my head, if I said the words, just to give you a little reference how old I am, which is not good, is when I came back and I was working with the gentleman that you might know called Veer Sangvi, and I started my column with him first. He introduced me in his team and said, Magan, the sommelier, he'll be writing a column. And when I left the office, they asked him, but he doesn't sound African. So Veer said, why do you think he'll sound African? He said, but you said he's from Somalia. So just to give you an idea, we are not Somalians. We are not from the movie like pirates or doing other things, or we're not from an African nation. We are sommeliers. And that's how old the word was. I started saying wine taster. But today, you'll realize as we present that the word has changed a lot in its meaning and connotation. So let's have a slide and let's say who exactly is a sommelier for you guys. Normally you'll get an answer. If I ask all of you, I think you'll say someone who gets the wine and serves the wine. A wine server is a wine waiter is a sommelier, right? I mean, that's what we all think, that a sommelier is a person who takes the order, gets the bottle, presents it, shows it, opens it, and then serves it. And what are the tools you'd need for that? You'd have a glass for maybe tasting the wine. You'd have a bottle and a cradle maybe to show it. And you'll have that very nice looking wine waiter, angel's friend, whichever way you want to have it, and a wine opener to at your on your hip pocket or something to open it with, maybe an apron as well. But is that all there is to being a sommelier? Because in today's times, that is not just what a sommelier does. A sommelier has a lot more going for them. So going ahead, can have a, yeah, cool. So today, if you go ahead in the, I think the slides, like, yeah, a wine sommelier is not just a wine waiter. Today, you've got a lot more of a task that you have to handle, that you have to come around with to make sure that you are completing the process for the guest in your restaurants, for someone in a shop, to give them a complete experience of purchasing a beverage and not just necessarily wine. For example, you could be pairing things with beer. You could have single malts. You could have a discussion about anything under the sun. In fact, we always discuss this amongst us that if you're not standing behind the bar, or if you're not in the kitchen, that whole salon where you work will become your workspace. So look at this gentleman here. And if I were to ask you, what is he dressed like? Normally you think that he's dressed like a general manager, or he's dressed like maybe the F&B director or the corporate guy. But actually, this is Andreas Larsson, the world's best sommelier award title winner from 2016, Scandinavian fellow, but really, really learned in his wines. I think he's managed his MS after that, I'm not too sure. But that is a sommelier. He's a person who can have a conversation with you on 100 things that are not just wine, okay? So think of it this way also, that the specializations. Today, if a guy walks out in a chef coat to you in a restaurant, you don't care if he's the garde-manger chef or the pâtissier chef or the soup chef. For you, he's the chef, and you will ask him all questions and address all your queries about the kitchen and the food to him. Similarly, if a person from the bar walks up to you, if he's a mixologist or the juice maker or the shrubs in charge, you don't care. For you, he's a mixologist. All your bar questions go to them. Service, which is purely the transfer of dishes from the kitchen to the table and back to the wash-up area, is a server's job. So everything else that is left in between is today the function of a sommelier. So you're kind of bringing all of these things together. You need to make sure that the mixologist who makes fantastic drinks is spoken about at the table. The chef's food gets spoken about at the table and paired correctly with the right beverage so that the servers can execute their job. So that's why a sommelier's job today is a fairly big, all-encompassing job. It's not as small as it used to be. And obviously you get to look really sharp. As you can see, Andreas, they're looking very, very handsome in a suit. Cool, moving on. So having said that, now that we know that the who is a sommelier is sort of defined in the restaurant space, I think we need to address another question, that what of the question, the what is a sommelier, and not just the part that who the person as an entity was. So just let's get the slide change. And when you're talking about what is a sommelier, you're going to talk about the idea that, as we said, if you can eat it, drink it, smoke it, then you need to know it. So as long as it goes in through any of the passages here, you talk about nose, the ears, the mouth, the sommelier has to be tuned in to know all these passages and how it works, and then to be able to word it and translate that to the guest. So I might be a great taster, but if I can't express my joy of a certain product and transmit it to you so that you feel the same joy or find the same nuances as I did, then I might fail as a sommelier somewhat. So I might have great knowledge, I might have a great wine cellar, but it won't be enough. And now here comes the ambiguity of the world of wines. Here we are looking at a picture, and if you were to dissect this picture, we know it's a hill, we know it's a vineyard, we know it's planted in along the lines from the top of the hill towards the bottom of the hill. The clouds, that seems like a slightly cloudy sky, so we could assume it's either maybe dusk or dawn, or maybe it's a slightly overcast day, and there's a tree on top of the hill. But this vineyard could be practically in any part of the world. Nowhere does it say on this picture that's an Indian vineyard or an American vineyard or an Australian vineyard, which means that just this picture shows you how diverse or ambiguous a wine world can be, that you cannot just take a picture and figure out what's happening. The next picture gets the concept even clear, even more confusing, because this is a bunch of grapes. Now imagine that on any wine list abroad, you will find an easy 100 to 300 grapes listed. And even in India, it's easy to find about 40, 50 grapes being used to make wine. There are about 100,000 grapes that you can use to make wine. And out of that grapes, you can use different combinations, you can use different percentages, you can make different climatic mixes. So the idea being that just looking at a grape or just looking at a vineyard still does not give you a very clear idea of exactly where we are when we are talking about wines. Further extrapolated when you come to the cellars, that when you age the wine, here you're looking at barrels. And again, if you start dissecting this picture, you'll look at some names on the barrel. You'll think, okay, it looks like an old school cellar, looks like an abbey, the vaulted ceilings, some of the tanks at the back in wood, which are longer and elongated, could be perhaps Italian or Northern Italian or Central European. Others are looking like casks. So you're guessing what kind of a wine, but is it white? Is it red? We have no idea what's aging in them. So again, it adds to the ambiguity or the mix of the wine. But these are things you can still sort of jot down. You can figure out the vineyard. I'll tell you what it is. Gagan will give you an extensive idea of the grapes, and we'll finally know how the wine was aged. And that leaves us still one very ambiguous element in the entire picture. And this variable is the consumer. So in this picture, if you were to look at this lady, is she dining alone? Is she dining with someone? Is she waiting for someone? Or is she about to place her order? Or has she finished her order? Is she about to leave? Is she impatiently waiting for someone? Is someone else delayed? Is she anxious? There are so many factors which will influence her buying decision when it comes to the beverage, and even more so influence her appreciation of that beverage. If she is anxious and we give her a very expensive wine, we will waste it on her experience, and she may not come back again ordering the same thing. So we have to read not just the wine and the vineyard and the aging and the grape and know those things about the bottle, but once we have the bottle with us, we have to read the person who will consume that bottle. And there is never the right mix. The same consumer who likes a white wine today could like a red wine tomorrow. A consumer who likes a heavy red today will want a light rosé tomorrow. So you need to really read into the consumer. So if you put all of this together well, I think it would not be overemphasizing or exaggerating to say that the sommelier is a modern genius. You need to factor in so many things and then come to a decision which will affect sales and revenues and impressions, the first impressions or lasting impressions, that you need to put all of this together. And that is why a modern genius is pretty much an apt description of what a sommelier should aspire to be, at least today. Gagan, yes, and just before I hand over to Gagan, I think the other things are really funny. And there's a learned man once told me that when you're with wine people, discuss tennis or discuss philosophy, and with philosophers discuss wine. And the idea was that just knowing your wines is not enough. If I know wines and you understand cars, I need to have a way of explaining wines to you through the world of cars. Similarly, if someone else is a tennis fan, I should be able to explain wines to them through the medium of tennis. So you need to be storytellers. Okay, you need to have lovely stories. You also need to be historians. It's not just enough to know a wine, but the reasons behind why the wine was made. Why is bull's blood called bull's blood from Hungary? What is the history of the sweet wines of Bordeaux? What makes Burgundy so special and Bordeaux so special? The history of Champagne and how it was fought over during the wars, or talking about the time traveling aspect. When let's say you talk about a vintage and someone rattles off the climate and the rainfall or how they know that vintage would respond in 20 years. So you have the modern genius having to perform the roles of time traveling, being a historian, and being a lovely storyteller. So basically what I've been trying to do in the last few slides is impress upon all of you that being a sommelier is a lot more than just being a wine waiter who turns up and picks up bottles and serves them. That is wine bussing, and we don't really need a sommelier for that. If we have a sommelier, there's a bigger role to be fulfilled, and that was what I was trying to get at. Gagan, all yours from here.
Right. So I think coming into the industry, one of the biggest questions I had when I heard this term for the first time was, right, it sounds fancy. There's a lot of joy in doing this, but let's talk about money. What am I going to earn at the end of the day? What am I taking back home? So I think one of the biggest factors is that in a commercial setup, when you're working for a company or a hotel, restaurant, or an organization, the biggest factor is what is your salary? Because your salary does not only define how happy you become, but also your worth in the society. So I think one of the biggest factors why Sommellerie is on the rise is because it is not only a neat job, but it also is a high paying job. So, you know, just to put a mathematical value onto it, this is just a general formula. As a student, if somebody gave me this formula, I would have probably printed this on a paper and slipped it under my pillow and, you know, seen this formula before I slept and the first thing when I woke up, because this is how your salary is decided. So basically for an organization to figure out what is your value or what is your worth as an employee to them, the idea is that whatever they pay to you, you should be in a position to bring 10 times the revenue of your salary. So if your salary is, let's say, 10,000 rupees a month, on an average, you should be able to bring 10 times of that, so which is 1 lakh. And not just bring 1 lakh rupees at 100% cost, but out of that, 80% should be pure profit. That is how your salary is decided. So even if you bring in 1 lakh rupees, but by, you know, putting out 50,000 rupees from the company's pocket, you're not the best employee or server or professional in their realms of things. So if we were just to talk about, let's say, a hotel, let's say we would just were to talk about the beverage aspect of it, and we were to think, okay, fine, we are talking about a bar or a restaurant where there is no brewery sales or nothing. Let's say there is a bar and then there is a wine cellar. So ideally what would happen is, and I'm just giving you these vague figures, these are not fixed industry standards. Let's say I buy a bottle of wine from my, you know, retailer or from my distributor for 2,000 rupees, right? Ideally it would sell for 10,000 rupees on a wine list. And now again, it can be more expensive, it could be cheaper. How many days do you require to sell one bottle of wine? I think just one shot and the bottle is sold. So in one day, you can invest 2,000 rupees and sell that bottle of wine and make 8,000 rupees of pure profit. So you come to the job, you sell one bottle of wine, you've already made 8,000 rupees of pure profit for your company. Now, for a bottle of spirit, let's say you buy a bottle of spirit, let's say a whiskey or a rum or a vodka, no vodka, but a whiskey or rum, or let's say a gin, for 2,000 rupees, a bottle would be 750 ml. One peg of spirit is 30 ml. So you get 25 portions out of a bottle. On an average, a peg would sell for, let's say, 600 rupees. You would be able to earn 15,000 rupees by selling that one bottle of spirit and earn 13,000 rupees as pure profit. So in wine, you are spending 2,000 but earning 8,000 rupees profit. In spirits, you're, you know, putting out 2,000 rupees but earning 13,000 rupees profit, which is more. But as an industry standard, what we know is minus your house pours, it takes 23 days to sell an entire bottle of spirit by the peg in a restaurant or in a hotel setting. We're not talking about banquets. We're not talking about a mixology bar. So if you were to put these figures together, you are putting 2,000 rupees out in the market. In one day, by selling a bottle of wine, you're earning 8,000 rupees. In 23 days, you're earning 13,000 rupees profit by selling a bottle of spirit. So by the end of the 23rd day, for a bottle of spirit, you would have just earned 13,000 rupees profit. But by doing that on a daily basis with a bottle of wine, you would have earned as close to 2 lakh rupees. So the idea is very simple. The more revenue you bring, the more profitable that revenue is, your salary is decided accordingly. Why 23? Well, 7 days is just day off out of the month. So let's just keep it that way, right? So eventually, if you put this formula back in deciding your salary, do you want to be selling wines or do you want to be selling spirits over 23 days? The idea is very, very simple. And that is the reason why you need to decide if you want to be in the spirits business or do you want to be in the beer business or do you want to be in the wine business? And that is the reason why we say that, you know, when all of these calculations come in, if I knew this, luckily I took the right decision of being in wines out of passion. But if I knew this in hotel management, I would have kept this as a secret with against all my pals in the batch. And I would have said, nah, I'm taking care of wines. You do whatever you have to do. So this is one of the biggest factors that sommeliers are one of the biggest money makers in an F&B setup. And we are not talking about the chefs and all that. I'm just talking about the front of the house, on-floor service professionals between servers, mixologists, and sommeliers. So it is safe to say sommeliers bring more money into the F&B scope by the sale of beverages. Now, good for you that there is this sort of a job existing, but why should you do this job? Is first of all, the industry requires this as a profession. This is a profession that has been coming up from the last 10 years. You know, whatever my wine studies have been, I think I've done them in the last 10 years itself, and it has been a good journey so far. But the bigger thing is, in a year, there are about 1.5 lakh hospitality students who graduate and go into the industry. Now, if you were to think how many front office professionals are there in a 5-star hotel, there might be a team of 12, maybe 15, and they won't be, you know, be chucked out after a year and new team brought in. How many sommeliers are there in a hotel? So ideally, you know, what is happening is that there are a lot of chefs going into the industry. There are a lot of front office professionals, housekeeping professionals, F&B service professionals going into the industry, but not a lot of sommeliers are going into the industry. As an average, right now in India, there might be 1 sommelier per 100 F&B outlets. But how many chefs would be there per 100 F&B outlets? You can do the math. So because there's a higher demand for this profession in the industry, it's a very simple idea. If the demand is more and the supply is less, you'll be paid highly. So there is a demand for this profession. There are more and more people joining this profession, and there is a dire need for people who could tell, you know, people who have an import system what wines to bring in. Then you need people to educate about those wines. Then you need people in the F&B trade to teach how to serve that wine. And then you also need an entire team that could actually execute that and get it done for the consumer. So we're not just talking about one person in the hotel, we're talking about an entire team. And unfortunately, just think about the 5-star hotels or, you know, standalone high-rise restaurants around your establishment, and you will be able to see, yeah, not many of them have a sommelier, but do they need one? Yes, they need one. So this is just one of those professions that the industry needs more of you, rather than the supply is there, but the demand is not there. The second thing is, and this is, you know, this is very, very interesting, is that alcohol, be it wines, beer, spirits, mixology, is a language like music or religion, which can be spoken anywhere in the world at any age, under any circumstances, and people will understand. What is a lager? What is a white wine? What is a champagne? What is a Scotch versus whiskey versus a bourbon whiskey? What is a martini? These are international terms that you do not really require to think about, oh, would my, you know, expertise or would my skills be applicable outside of the area of operation where I am, let's say Bombay or Delhi or India for that matter? Would I be able to use that and make money? And the most important thing is, earlier it was not probably in Bombay, but in other parts of the country at least, and for a very long time, and it still exists, that working with alcohol sometimes is considered to be a taboo. A lot of people say, oh, you work in the alcohol industry, that means you're an alcoholic. You're a certified alcoholic. A lot of people said that to us as well when we started our you know, industry career. A lot of people also say that for ladies as well. A lot of ladies shy away from working in the trade only because it is considered to be a taboo. And I think that is passé. I can tell you there are brewers, there are distillers, there are winemaking professionals who are female, and they're doing absolutely well. Grover Vineyards, he brought his daughter into Charisma Grower and she makes wines. The second in command chief winemaker at Sula, it's a lady. Second in command winemaker at Valone Vineyards is a lady. The chief distiller for Stranger and Son Indian Gin is a lady, Chanel Martins. There is a professional brewer at Mysore Brewery at Bira, which is one of the biggest brewing facilities in the country right now. So, you know, ladies are also there. And let's just go back to, you know, talking about money. Of course, in financial terms, whatever comes into your account is just one figure which defines your value. But then there are other ways that you can earn as well. First of all, you are paid to study. And I think this is one of the things which in hospitality is not very well understood. But if you were to go into management, in the management end of hospitality, there are a lot of F&B professionals or management professionals who are given 1 year paid leave, and they are given an MBA ticket to IIMs and Cornells and all of them. And they say, you go study, learn a skill, come back, execute it, and make us more profitable. And this is what is happening with sommeliers as well as of right now. What we know is that we were talking with the general manager of one of the Leela hotels, and they said, listen, in the time to come, the hotels will not be training the staffs on wines or alcohols or mixology. We would want the hotel management institutes to do that, because we want trained professionals coming into the industry rather than picking up a, you know, a boy or a girl who has good interpersonal skills and develop them further. Because we all know 6 months and you move away to another property or another facility. So you are paid to study. We know you are paid to travel. So between Magan and I, we guys have traveled to a lot of countries where the government of those countries have invited us, and they said, oh, do you want to come and see the wineries, the vineyards, meet with the winemakers? You know, we won't pay you hard cash, but we will pay for your tickets, your flights, your visa, accommodation, food, drinks, everything. We are paid to speak as well, not right now, but in general we are. And more importantly, we are paid through good wines and good company. There have been times where what has happened is we decant the wine, a 750 ml bottle, and 50 ml is left. And these are wines which are, you know, 1.5 lakh rupees a bottle, 2 lakh rupees a bottle. Now imagine 50 ml of that, the wine, the guest says, I won't pay you cash tip, but there you go, 50 ml of a 2 lakh rupee wine. There you go, that's your tip. Taste it, drink it, share it with your team. And that is one of the biggest pleasures of life. Other one, paid through good company. We guys have shared tables with a lot of actors, a lot of prime ministers and presidents of different countries. We did a whiskey tasting very recently with Kapil Dev. So I think, you know, that is another thing that also adds value to you. Take a picture with, you know, Kapil Dev tasting a bottle of wine with you and put it on your Instagram, and you know what will happen, right? So these are some of the ways where you are further, you know, paid, if not in hard cash, but in experiences. And that is what makes you a better professional as well. Talking about professionals, we do this competition called the Indian Sommelier Championship. Andre has been, has been present at one of the championships. And the 6th Indian Sommelier Championship was won by Pankaj Balachandran, who was working at Taj Hotels at that time. Today, 6 years later, he is the brand ambassador for Monkey Shoulder whiskey in the country. There are 13 or 14 brand ambassadors for Monkey Shoulders in the world. Pankaj is one of them. And he is still a, you know, learned sommelier. And think about it, we are not talking about wines anymore. A brand ambassador of a whiskey brand. That is what he is, right? Moving on, the next one was Atul Tiwari. Atul won the competition in the 3rd go. He came first, then he came again, and then he came again, and finally he won the trophy. He did not have a passport. He was paid by Penfolds, which is the most iconic Australian brand that you can think of, to go and make wines with the winemaker, Peter Gago, in Australia, and he traveled there. After that, he has traveled to 16 different countries, more than 120 wineries, all expense paid. Today, in 5 years from the competition, he is the F&B manager of the Oberoi at Nariman Point, a rock star by all measures. The next one, Harish Archrekar, you might know him locally. He's a Mumbai guy, the guy in the center. He is now the brand ambassador for Bacardi. He's taking care of Bacardi. He's taking care of Dewar's whiskey as well. The gentleman in glasses, he was the sommelier sommelier at the St. Regis Hotel. Now he's working at Ministry of Crabs, which is amongst the best restaurants in Asia, in Colombo. And he was amongst the first few certified sommeliers in the country. The third one is Prateek Angre. He also came the third time in the competition and won the competition. And you can see there's a bottle of beer, there's a bottle of sparkling wine, and various other things. He's now the beverage manager for the Table Group, Misty, May 13, Magazine Street Kitchen. If you know of Miss Gauri Devi Dayal, his restaurants, he's the guy. I think last week, Wine Spectator, which is one of the biggest magazines on wines, biggest authority in wines, they made a list of the most commendable wine lists in the world. And there was only one restaurant in India, a standalone restaurant, which was on that list. That wine list was decided by this gentleman. So, you know, local guy, but really amazing stuff that he's doing. Abhas, he used to work as a manager at the Taj, and now he is working as the beverage manager for the Oberoi groups in Mumbai. So whatever Oberoi you have in Mumbai, this gentleman single-handedly takes care of it. Just 2 years after the competition. The first lady to lift the trophy was Devti. She used to work for Oberoi Hotels, but now she has become such a superstar in the industry that she is the brand manager for Charisma Estates, which is a very good winery in India, very limited production. You can't find their wines in Delhi and Mumbai, yeah, really, really amazing stuff. And this lady, Anushka, she just won the competition last year, and she was supposed to represent India in Australia at the World Sommelier Championship. Unfortunately, with the lockdown and everything, we don't know what the future of that is. But again, a girl winning the competition. There is wine, beer, spirits, food and wine pairing, you know, trick questions and whatnot that they have to go through, a 40-minute service round. And she won the competition this year. So, you know, again, there are spirits, there is management, there is brand ambassadorship to even wine brands. Everything is a part of a sommelier's journey. And now, if in case you were to say, how do you become a sommelier? There are various institutes like the Court of Master Sommeliers that Andre mentioned about. There is the WACT that we all have, you know, Andre and I have gone through the entire drill. But again, you know, these are international courses, and unfortunately, they do not teach you service. They do not teach you pronunciation. They do not teach you food and wine pairing. And this is the biggest flaw that has been seen in international courses. CMS does not, Code of Master Sommeliers does not teach you anything. It's a self-taught program. But then these are international courses that do not take into account what India is doing. So first thing first, how do you learn about wines? You do not have to step out of your house anymore. There are courses that even we guys do at the Institute of Wine and Beverage Studies. Apart from the courses, there is the Indian Sommelier Championship. And just yesterday with Roma ma'am, with Annabelle ma'am and Andre, I was mentioning, in a few weeks, in 2 or 3 weeks, we guys are starting the country's first, it might be Asia's first, we don't know, Young Sommelier Olympiad. So we are now encouraging hospitality students to start young at the hospitality school level and become sommeliers and graduate to the next level. So this will be a competition that we'll be announcing probably at the end of the month. You can take a part in it. You will be taught, and then you will compete. You win the Young Sommelier Championship. You will automatically take an entry as a reward. You will go into the Indian Sommelier Championship, the big boy competition. And if in case you win that, you never know if in case you will ever want to serve a bottle of wine, because you'll earn so much, but who knows. There's also a Society of Sommeliers now in India, which does exist, which you can find it out on the website later on. So as I said, you don't have to leave your house anymore. There are courses that Magan and I, we do. We have already recorded them and put them on the internet, which are about wines, beer, spirits, and mixology. Right now we have a wine course, but we are developing other courses on beer, spirits, and mixology. I think the spirits course is next in line, which should come out very soon, probably in a week's time or something. Now, Andre and I, we used to travel together to Hong Kong for our wine exams. And we used to always have this, you know, conversation that why is learning about wines and alcohol so expensive in the country? So we took all of that away, and we have created this course called Learn from Home Wines, which is at our website called IWBS.in. So it's a very simple process. You go onto the course. There are about 7 hours of video content, quizzes, handbooks, certification, webinars, and everything. So you register for yourself, uh, put on all your login details and everything. And then, of course, the fee was lesser, which was at 2,500. But I had a chat with Andre. He's a good negotiator. So we brought it further down just for Don Bosco hospitality students. So you can pay the fee. You can send us the screenshot or the deposit details of that, and you will be ready to study. And this is the format, how it looks. And once you're done with all of that stuff, not that you will be a sommelier, but you will be on the right path to be a sommelier. If you still say, yeah, why should I study, right? I would suggest you've got to do it for yourself. And this is really important. While you're young, you have a lot of energy. You might not have a lot of wisdom, but you have a lot of energy, and you say, oh, I'm going to work 14 hours for 1 month and I'll become a rock star in the hierarchy. Maybe not. You will break your back. You will not be there for your family on the occasions that matter. Like, for example, I was never there for Raksha Bandhan, New Year's and all that, because we are the guys who are serving and getting people drunk in hotels and restaurants. You might have kids, and then those kids might say, where is Papa or Mummy? Do they exist in books, or do they really exist? Who's that man or a woman who comes late at night and goes away early in the morning? You do not want that sort of a life. So do it for yourself. Have a fancier job. Don't wear a waistcoat, wear a suit with nice tie, a lapel pin, and hold a bottle of wine in your hand and say, would you like to taste something? That's the sort of job that you want to do. It might have been an international thing earlier, but now it doesn't exist. Now it is as local as the restaurant in your neighborhood. So you can do it for yourself, know your worth, earn more, work less, and be a learned, fancy professional. So yeah, that's what it is. If you ever have any questions, which we might not be able to answer today, write to us. Andre has our email address. You have our Institute of IWBS Studies Instagram. Get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions if we can't today. So yeah, cheers, guys. That's what it is. Be a sommelier.
So,
ma'am, you're on mute.
Okay. So they come to the college and they hire the students into F&B. How do you go from that initial hire to being a sommelier? What are the criteria? There will be a certain amount of passion. You would have finished, hopefully, a bunch of the courses that you all are offering. Is there do I have to do that? Do I have to do WSET? What should I be doing so that I'm constantly getting up to the rung of being taken seriously as a sommelier? Because, nobody has come to the college and actually, when they're doing hiring, say, okay, they always say we're going to hire for the F&B department, food production, housekeeping and front office. They never specify. So even in the front office, they won't specify, oh, we're going to come and take a concierge, or like this, are we going to take a sommelier? So how do I, as a student, when I'm being hired, how do I maneuver my career to get to being a sommelier?
Logan, all yours.
So it's a tricky situation when it comes to campus hiring, because there are two things. First is you can study to be a sommelier, but if in case you want to be a professional sommelier, you need to have some experience of tasting and other things.
Okay.
So at this age, unfortunately, to be exposed to alcohol as much and be
Right.
tasting and be traveling becomes a little difficult. The other thing also is that you are correct, ma'am. You might have campuses coming in saying, oh, we want 4 people for our front office. And then
Right.
they would internally analyze who's good for, which department.
Right.
Same with F&B, they might take 10 people and they say, okay, you are for coffee shop, you are for banquet, you are for fine dining. I think that will always happen. But I think what has happened over the years, what we have seen is that first thing first is if you have a little bit of a beverage knowledge, specifically about non-alcoholic beverages, your chances of becoming a management trainee increase. And the second thing also is that your chances of handling the cellar, the wine list, the stocking, and all of that stuff increase. And I think initially you have to go through that that drill, but your chances of reaching to a certain point becomes more, and your progress becomes a little faster. But as I said, ma'am, this was from a real conversation where Magan and I, we were on the same table and we were discussing this with the general manager. He said, we want kids now to come into the industry, learn it. They should know their stuff before they come to us. So I think that's the general expectation that's there in the industry now.
Okay, and so the other thing is with the present generation, right? Understandably, they've got everything instantly for them, whether it is on the phone or whether it's their food or everything. So how do you explain to a student the average? I mean, of course, it would depend on how good the student is and how receptive they are and how well they acclimatize to what they are doing. What would be the life, the kind of the time span that they should be kind of budgeting to get to a certain point where it then becomes, okay, now I can choose what I want to do? Is it a period of 10 years? Is it a period of 12, 15? What are they looking at?
I think so just to put it in perspective, when I was in IHM, the average F&B manager would be about a 48-year-old gentleman. The GMs are all in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yes,
and
now they're...
In the last 2 decades, my batchmates are beyond GMs. 35, 33-year-old GMs I've seen already on the floor running big properties and full-fledged, not just a tier 2 town 3-star hotel, but 5-star properties in metros. So in that progression, the hierarchy has already become a lot easier because, with BRS, a lot of the clutter that was there blocking space has moved on, making space for many people. So that's one reason why there'll be a fast traction and movement. I think Gagan and I have both seen a lot of change happen in the industry, that sommeliers are now recognized as a separate entity. The problem is in the Indian contract law, you can't show them as a separate employee. So you can't show separate tips for a sommelier versus a server. So those things impede the person from having a separate hierarchy in the system. So but the beverage manager today, they won't be just one. Many hotels have 3 or 4 beverage managers to manage the whole show. That's there. And in this pre-COVID era, now the post-COVID, I think one emergence will be the fact that people may not necessarily want to hire people from other parts of the country. So let's say if I'm Goan, I've gone back to Goa, the hotels will be happier to find local talent and resources to keep their functions going, because that's more sustainable. So they're not just cutting costs, they're also cutting scare and fear and those factors. There's been a lot of commotion in the last 2 months. So what we are finding is that people in Jaipur now will find reason to be educated, because Delhiites may not get a job there easily and may not want to get a job there easily. So because of these 2 reasons combined, the fact that the industry is getting younger and in the post-COVID, localization is very important. You could say that, I mean, Gagan gave you figures and we roughly translated once. I think a sommelier can start with a 20, a management trainee start at what, 20,000, 25,000, Gagan, I think?
25, yeah.
Yeah, roughly. There is nothing stopping a sommelier in starting with those salaries. In a standalone, with a little experience, it could even be as much as little as 2 or 3 years. Or if they do well at an ISC and they suddenly come up in the top 5 ranks, you can easily make that and a bit more in the standalone space starting today. And another 4 years or 3 years, you could be handling beverages completely.
Wonderful. That's excellent news.
Tainaz is also in the participation today. And she even dropped a message that Harish is one of her proud, alumni. So Harish was working at the Four Seasons Hotel in Mumbai. And, he wanted to very desperately be a part of the Sommellerie Championship. And I think at that point in time, the championship was only happening in Delhi. So he flew at his own cost. He found his own accommodation, came into the finals, didn't win anything. But next year he was a runner-up. And the next year he won the competition. And in these 3 years alone, he was given the charge of handling beverages for entire Four Seasons Hotel, including air, Prato, Sanchi, everything. And then once he won the competition, he went to the general manager and he said, listen, I want to be a sommelier. Now I'm an Indian sommelier champion. And he traveled to Austria representing India as well with Magan. And the general manager said, listen, we are a chain. Until the time the big CEOs do not agree to this change in hierarchy, we can't do that for you. 6 months later, he had to move out of the system, go to a standalone restaurant, work there, created a term called sommelier in Mumbai, and now he's moved to spirits. I think just graduating to higher level of alcohol for him. But yeah, these are struggles that have already been done by professionals in the industry, and they have already carved that designation in the hierarchy.
Okay.
But sommeliers still are a breed, and there are beverage managers. Mixologists are separate people altogether. So I think it's a profession by itself. How quickly you go there, I think it also depends on how passionate you are, how much hunger do you have to learn, and also the organization that you're working for.
I think, sorry, just to plug in an example, Sahil Mishra, who works with us, who's actually got definitely more hair and younger and more attractive than both of us put together. He has, from the time he joined us in 2 years, has managed to acquire his WSET diploma, I think, Gagan, almost on his last stage of it, but he's got his CMS level 2, one of the few people in India to have done it. So Gagan mentored him through a lot of it, but it accelerated his learning to the point that there are barely 4 or 5 people, or not even, who could sort of show that caliber at his age of early mid 20s. So there is a possibility, and as Gagan said, the word is passion and your own enthusiasm. So I think we have an example with us in our company that we know that you can do it.
Wonderful. I will now leave it to the students, because I know that they are all chomping at the bit to ask you all a bunch of questions. So Andre is going to coordinate that.
Yes. So I think we have Brian Lewis, who's been waiting and has his hand raised up to ask a question. Can I ask Brian to unmute himself and ask the question?
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Brian.
Hi. Sir, good evening, Mr. Mandeep. So my question was basically that as I'm a student in the TY, and due to this COVID situation and the crisis, post the situation, obviously jobs and trying to get into in the industry is going to be a lot more difficult. So my question was, after my TY, what would be more advisable? Would it be more advisable to actually pursue a sommelier's course and have a firm base and then get into the industry? Or would it be better to join the industry, get to know about wines, get a firm base, know what I'm actually into, and then go for a professional sommelier's course?
Again, you want to go for it? All yours.
Brother, if I was in your place, this is what I did when I started my second year and I got to know about wines, and I knew that, yeah, this is an interesting program. I signed up for a wine learning program, and I figured out that, yeah, this is something that I can make a career into, and I would love to, stick with it. Getting into the industry and then trying to find your niche would be a little late. So if in case you wish to have a more specific skill and want to exploit that, I think that would be a better idea. Any which way, as you said, finding a job now would be a little tricky. So if you have a added advantage of a specific skill, if even I as an employer was to come to Don Bosco and pick up students or professionals who I wanted to work with, I would want to get people who have that specific skill that I'm looking for, rather than screen through 100 120 kids altogether. So now you have the time, might as well join a wine course or even a beverage course, see if in case this is really your calling, and then get into the industry and figure out what you wish to do.
Thank you, Mr. Gagan.
Yes, ma'am.
We have another question from Shivam Panda, who's been an ex-student with us and today is working with the Irish Bar. Shivam, can you hear us?
Hello.
Shivam, hi. We can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, both of you. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Uh, so my question is to Mandeep Singh actually, since sir has told that you can recognize you can't waste expensive wines on the like your customer by waiting or who is waiting for a long time, who is not sure, didn't give the orders and everything, or might be he or she has finished the order and waiting for the checks and everything. So how can means how can I know that whether which wine will go best with the person, or what exact the wine which I have to serve to that?
Well, it's an interesting question, but it's a question of something called complete subjectivity. And that's where one thing where experience will always count. Just like your parents or your siblings will always know which color is your favorite or which shirt do you prefer. For example, if I bought you a shirt today, I think I'll do a bad job. I'll get you a shirt that you don't like at all. But if we have a connection, we speak for 2 hours, we hang out a couple of, we go out of pizzas and drinks. And then if I buy you a shirt, I'm going to get it pretty spot on. So it all comes down to hidden trial. So it's not very scientific. So remember, wine making might have science to it, but sommellerie is an art. And because it's an art, it's very subjective. So there is no one right answer. And as I said, the same guest who walks in one day wanting a heavy red wine will come in the next day and want a light sparkling wine. So you need to read the situation. And as when Gagan was showing you the slide, if you saw the last 2 years when the women won the ISC, he didn't divulge one little fact that they won by a margin which was so huge that even after penalizing them for taking extra time, they were still miles ahead of the male competition. So it's been very heartening for us to see. And I always told the boys that you have two problems at the competition. One, you are peacocks. You want to just strut your stuff and show how much you know. And the other problem is you don't listen. You don't listen to what the guests, which are the judges, are asking you. The women just did two things. They listened and they answered the question. So
And they
how
smile.
you can do it? Sorry, Gagan, I'm leaving it to you. So how you can do
And
it?
they smile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
They
smile.
had a
Yeah,
massive smile on
they could
them.
multitask. So multitask, listen, and answer. And women did not do anything extraordinary, but they were extraordinary because the men were incapable of doing these three things. So I think Gagan and I sat through that. Gagan sits through a lot more of those finals, interviewing the people and it's harrowing. I can imagine the pain he goes through because us boys just want to go out there and impress with the knowledge without being concerned about what the guest wants. So if you can tune in, you will know what the right wine is. You will get it wrong a couple of times, but if you do it with sincerity, you will still keep the guest. That's what I have found. That's what worked for me for the last few, more than near 2 decades. I think Gagan, I can see, is concurring, and smile was very important. That I'd give him that. Yeah, sure.
Uh, Thank you for that. And one more question, may I ask? Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
go
yes.
ahead.
Sure.
Uh, this question is for Gagan Sharma, sir. Hello.
Yeah, Shivam, I can hear you.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Right now you have said that you can go to your like studies of winery. There is no age actually. If my colleague, my college colleague is in her TY, I had heard that. So you told me that you can sign up by studying it itself.
Yeah.
Right now I'm working with Irish House. So how can I go to this, and how it will help me if I want to study the sommelier?
So Shivam, there are, so the idea is with this courses that these are recorded sessions. So even
Okay.
at 2 o'clock at night, once the bar is shut, if you want to take 20 minutes and just see the video like how you see on YouTube or on Facebook, these are recorded sessions. So you can play them whenever you wish to. So that is,
Okay.
we found out this problem with, with hospitality students who said that, listen, Monday to Friday we study. We only have a weekend. We can't come and do a program there. Even if we can, we might not get days off if in case the course happens on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is the same problem that we had with hospitality students. I'm pretty sure, Shivam, if I was to ask you, go and ask your manager for a day off on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you
No,
will not.
it won't be possible.
Same thing happens with consumers as well, that let's say your father or your mother, let's say if they work at a bank or an office, and they were to take Thursday, Friday off, including Saturday, Sunday, they will be counted as 4 days off.
Yes.
So, and of course, you would say, Papa, come play carom with me on a Sunday or whatever. So this is the reason why we have recorded the sessions, and we say, listen, we're giving 90 days to do the program. See these 7 hours of videos over 90 days whenever you wish to.
Okay.
It's like your Amazon Prime or your Netflix, open it wherever and wherever you are, watch it. So that is the whole idea. And the same thing we're doing for beers and spirits as well. And hopefully you'll be able to understand this. I understand that, learning a liquid, if you want to swim, you need to have a swimming pool filled with water. Similarly, if you want to study wines or spirits or beers, you need to see and taste and smell the liquid. But right now, as you also know, I don't know if your Irish House Club or Irish House is in operation or not. Once the operations begin, we will be doing webinars where we will tell you, listen, these are the 5 wines that you should go and buy. Maybe a Sula Riesling, maybe a Fratelli Chenin Blanc. And then on Monday, 6 o'clock, let's sit and taste all of those wines together.
The most of the standalones, sorry to cut you, most of the standalones doesn't have a very expensive wines or like the Chardonnays of a good quality of wines. They deals with most of the Indian wines.
Right.
They deals most of with the Indian wine. How it is possible to learn more and more depth on that?
Brother, you don't have to learn what they serve, because when you, let's say from Irish House, if in case tomorrow Abhas calls you and he says, Gagan, I want a person, recommend me somebody in Mumbai who I wish to hire for my wine department. And I say, oh, Shivam Panda is a good guy. He asked some intelligent questions at the Zoom session we did. Hire him. You do not have to restrict your wine learning or your beer learning or your spirits learning to what you are selling. You might have an opportunity tomorrow to go to an Oberoi and Taj and work for them, and your learning cannot start when you go to them. Your learning has to start beforehand. Who knows if an F&B manager comes to your restaurant and say, tell me something about wines that you don't have, and you might impress them and they say, yeah, here's my card, call me tomorrow, come for a job.
Okay.
So you will have to unfortunately just learn by your own self. Get 2 or 3 people, buy a bottle together, taste it, try and learn something about it, read about it, see some videos about it, ask us wherever you wish to. You have our email address and everything. I'll put it down in the chat. Write us an email, give us a call. We'll be happy to help you as well.
Sure, sir.
For
Thank
Andre and for me at least, Magan did exactly the same thing. We used to ask him questions. I've asked him questions which he would have said, listen, brother, why don't you just delete me from your memory? I've asked him really harrowing questions, really wrong questions as well, but then that is how you're supposed to, that's how you're supposed to learn.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll write down our email ID. You can write to us or call us whenever you wish.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shivam.
Thank you.
All right, we have another question from a student who's just passing out from the 3rd year, Ernest D'Souza, and Ernest has finished his WSET level 2 whilst he was in the 2nd year itself. He also intends joining the CMS bandwagon, and he has a question for you. Ernest, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah,
good evening.
Good evening, Ernest.
So good evening, Mr. Magandeep, and good evening, Mr. Gagan, sir. Basically, my question is for the both of you, if anyone who could give me a more precise advice on this. Now, I couldn't relate much more to anything that you said when it came to the money of the sommeliers, when it came to the self-studying, when it came to self-exploring about different kinds of wines and everything. Because since, as Andre sir has already told you, that I had already completed my WSETs level 1 and 2. And in fact, on the other hand, I also got an opportunity to work with the Master of Wine, Miss Sonal Holland. My main question is, I have seen how the industry works as a young student who is just getting into wines, and I've experienced the money part and everything for itself. My main question is, what do I do next? I mean, I know, keeping aside the part where I need to keep continuously studying and climb up the levels of my WSET and then CMS, etc. What should I do next? What is the kind of a job that I should go around seeking for? Hello.
Okay, do you want to get that?
Who do you want to answer? Okay, I'll take it. So, Anis, there is definitely one thing that, in general, in hospitality, it happens that this is something that I also did. I graduated from my hotel management graduation, and then I went on to do my masters in Australia, and I came back. But then certifications in this course, in this profession, definitely help. But there is something that comes only with experience. As Shivam was also asking, how do I know which guest wants which wine? It is only something that you can learn from experience. If if today you are in Mumbai, Sahil and I went to Nasik in March, right? If I have more experience in May about Indian wines and what was happening there in March, then of course I learn more. So you will have to get yourself exposed further. You'll have to get more experience, maybe in international realms as well, and only then your salary will only be corresponding to that. However, what I said in the presentation is just a general idea on how industry decides what your worth is. More revenue you get, the more salary you get, and that is what I was trying to show at that point in time.
So, and just if I might add one thing, remember in the WSET format, while it's a good learning format, it's like a PhD. It's theoretical.
Okay.
You can be an MW and you never have to pour one bottle of wine. You don't even have to open one bottle. So you have no experience with how to handle a bottle of wine if a cork breaks, and what happens if all this happens in front of a guest, or how to pair food and wine. These are things that are not in the WSET, in the MW journey. So
even in the WSET doesn't teach you how to open and pour wine.
Yeah, so you don't have to look at those. And those are things which are actual skills, which today, honestly, you wake us, even if you're sleeping, you give us a wine opener and a bottle, we'll open the bottle in our sleep, sniff the cork, taste it, and give it back to you. Because that's opening 100 bottles an event, 200 bottles a day. It just gets set. And there is no substitute for experience. So you can get all the certification, but remember that if you're a PhD, you're not like a surgeon. If you get an MW or some of those things, you're not like a doctor as a surgeon is. You're like a doctor as a PhD is, which means you might have a lot of theoretical knowledge, but you're not going to be able to apply anything on the floor or in an environment like a shop, because it's not the same pattern. There's a lot of knowledge, but it's primarily theoretical. So if you get on the floor, you work with a vineyard, work in a import house or a shop, your hands-on experience will teach you a lot more every day than most of these things can.
Okay. So what I'm guessing right now is that you guys are actually trying to tell me that I should focus more on getting my what do you mean? My practicality more polished. Basically,
but
how pragmatic
right now,
I can get with wine.
Right now, this lockdown is the best time to study and get all the theoretical knowledge you want, right? Be part of webinars, talk to us, ask Gagan what else you can do the French wine scholar programs, get all the certification under your belt, because this is the hustle while you wait. But the minute it opens up, when the gates open and employment begins again and people are looking to get back to whatever normal is, then your certification will not go waste. You will be you will be better placed to get a chance to apply all that and turn that into practical knowledge, because you have more certification. So right now is a great time to study and make yourself better. Whereas once it's open, then spend time being on the floor.
Yes.
So it's a great year. And it's a really troubling, tense time, but it's a great break that you guys have got, that you actually have time where the whole industry's on pause and they're allowing you to add skills without loss of anything. So no one will question you why you weren't working in 2020. But if you said, I got 3 certifications and I did this course and that, it'll add up as stars on your CV. And so, and as Gagan said, speak to him, because he'll guide you better in what you can do. Invest wisely, and then that's your hustle. That's what you're doing. You're waiting, but you're hustling at the same time, making sure you're agile so that when things open, you're ready for it.
Yeah. And I think one more thing is, adding certifications to your CV is definitely, a big help. But there are a lot of people who have no certifications but are really experienced. For example, the biggest winemaker in the country is Sula Vineyards. The chief winemaker who makes more than 1 million cases for Sula every year was a banker who just 5 months ago turned into a winemaker with no studies in wines. He has no winemaking experience. He has no nothing. Just out of passion and curiosity, he got into it. So, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, if in case you through WACT or through CMS or even the courses that we have, if you can tell us what are the 7 Grand Crus of Chablis, but when I put those 7 in front of you in terms of liquid in the glass and you can't tell the difference, then we have a problem, because the 7 Grand Crus are written in the book. My nephew is 8 years old. I can teach him French and I can make him remember those 7 names. But he won't be a sommelier because he can't go and serve wines as well as probably you can in a restaurant setup.
Okay. Thank you so much for your advice, sir.
Here's one.
Thank you, Ernest. We have another question from Girish Hajare. Girish, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Please go ahead. Please, yes, Girish, please go ahead.
Okay. So good evening everyone, and good evening Magandip sir, good evening Gagan sir. My question to you, mainly for both of you. So actually, I'm passed out from the ITM college, and now I'm working as a bartender. So actually, from last year, I'm not interested into spirit so muchly, and I'm interested into the wine. To be honest, my question is: should I into the wine and into the wine industry as well as to be a sommelier? Should I work with the wine I'm working in a standalone, but should I move to the 5-star, or should I go with the masters in wine in a foreign country like Australia or France or America or Canada? Can please advise me?
Mr. Singh, all yours.
Because actually, sorry to cut you, but
No, go
you
on, go
both know me actually from ITM college.
Yeah, we do.
We do. So I don't think on a normal situation day, I would have said, yes, go get work experience anywhere abroad where language is not an issue and it won't impede your career. If you can speak French, work in France. If you can speak Italian, work in Italy, US, London, wherever. In the current situation, I can tell you these options are not going to open up for a really long time. Okay, because when these things open up, I'm just telling you, Delhi won't hire from Jaipur, so you can forget London hiring from India. Okay, it's a bigger cost to incur, and they will not be looking at that. The figures are going to be hit, and when the ripple effect is, if it's hit now till December, the next year is also short. You won't get results immediately yet. So my advice right now is that you have to change your approach as a whole. You want to gain knowledge, and you want to also be able to pay bills and be self-sufficient, and also at the same time chart some sort of a career path. But remember, 2020 will be written as a like a gap year, or an Erasmus, or whatever you want to call it, in everybody's career, including ours. We've been discussing, and I told Gagan, this is like starting my career from 20 years all over again, because we are having to pivot so much, change things. Ideally, we would have been at your institute doing this live face to face, but here we are as things are. So try and not be too fixated on one idea of it has to be Australia or this or that, because we don't know how they will fare yet till things normalize. So keep all your options open. If you're going to get an option nearby to do something, then do that. But abroad, remember one thing, it's always going to be tough to get visas. There will always be a certain uncertainty that comes with it. You might make more money if you're in the Middle East. You might be easier to settle down if you want to go for good, go to Canada or Australia. But at the moment, all of these things will also have a freeze to them. Do you know that Europe is opening up travel, but they've actually banned travel from India to Europe? So you will have flights going out, but Europe you can't go to any which ways, even if you want to, because we are not allowed there right now. So these are things that are happening as in the world, and we don't know when it stops or if it gets worse. So try and keep your foot flexible, in the sense, try and pivot, try and see what happens. If, for example, you said you don't like spirits, I think don't waste your spirits knowledge. I think hang on to it and move on further and add wine to it. And if it so happens that you have to work in spirits for the next 2 years, do it. Don't stop. Don't retreat completely. Let spirits be your calling for now, because you never know, you might come back to spirits eventually. Or you might go to a category like vermouth, which is kind of sitting on the cusp here and there, and you don't know where you land. So don't close any doors yet, especially this year. Keep all doors open.
Sure.
I
Girish,
hope that answers your question somewhat.
if you're in Mumbai or Maharashtra in general, I think one of the best opportunities is just to make a trip to Nasik as often as you can and just go and see what's happening on the ground there. A lot of international winemaking techniques have come here. Go to Goa and try and see how gin is being made. Go to Pune or Bangalore or even in Mumbai, see how craft beers are being made. I think that'll be a good idea to have rather than thinking about going abroad. Working in standalones, one of the better things is that your work hours are better, so they allow you some more time to go back home and study the theory of it as well.
Yes.
But working in a five-star hotel versus a restaurant, it will always be a personal decision for any profession.
Sure.
But again, you don't have to go abroad and study all of that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Have a good day, sir.
You too.
Cheers.
All right. So we also have a question from Mr. Shubham Shukla. Shubham, can you hear us?
Yes, Andre, I'm here.
Yes. Please go ahead, Shubham.
Yeah. So my question is to Gagan. Sorry, I'm calling you Gagan. I think you are too young to be called as sir. So.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm more smart.
Right. So when we get out of this pandemic, so like, where do you see the future of Indian wines in next 5 years down the line? Will the focus be more on making the organic wines, or how is it going to work? Because of this pandemic, I think we are held back like a year or so.
Actually, Shubham, it's the other way around in India, at least. From what I know is that while the pandemic happened, the distillers in Goa were not allowed to go and pick cashew to make feni. So there is no feni made in India this year, in this season. Beer production was stopped by almost every state. Distillation was stopped because they wanted them to make hand sanitizers at that time. Indian wine industry was the only industry in the alcohol scheme that was allowed to go into the vineyards, pick the grapes, and make the crushing and fermentation happen. So I think in terms of pandemic, in terms of production, in terms of agriculture, in terms of grape production, nothing has changed. Rather, it has flourished. At this point in time, better labor came in and all that stuff happened. So it's way better. How is it going to affect the retail side of it? That might definitely change because yes, hotels and restaurants are not operating. So sales in general for wine, beer, spirits, liqueurs, whatever that is, mixology, everything is being affected. But I don't see how that will change anything in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years, rather, we have another session which is called The Journey of Indian Wines from the Vedas, from Samundar Manthan and Ramayana and Mahabharata till today, which we might do with Don Bosco probably in a few months, as Andre promised. But that will give you some idea to you. But I think in the next 5 years, the quality of winemaking has already gone up in India in the last 10 years. Or, my first visit to Nasik was in 2009. And now 11 years later, when I went for the third time to Nasik, massive change. Just Google the pictures, 2019 Nasik, 2020 Nasik, and you'll be like, oh, damn. It's from being a desert to Las Vegas now. So I think the quality of wines has definitely gone up. And in the future, I think there's only more promise because the craft scene is coming up. Be it craft beer, craft tonic waters, craft gin, craft whiskey, even with the wines that is happening. So in the times to come, I think there's definitely more promise. We are not buying Lamborghinis and Maseratis just yet, but we're not selling breaking our FDs and selling jewelry as well to feed ourselves.
Right. Thank you, Gagan. And also, we are talking about doing WSET. So if I do a WSET level 2, so what are the things other than sommeliership open for me? Because I think WSET level 2 will give you the information basically on the wines. I think it has stopped for spirits now.
Yeah, they've made different courses for wines, spirits, and sake now. So you have to spend 3 times the money to get the same certification that I did 10 years ago.
Right, true that. So, what are the other options that are open for me other than being a sommelier? If I do it in wines, so can I enter into any of the wine?
Yeah, you can see again, WSET is only going to teach you the theory of wines and maybe a little bit of tasting. It is not going to teach you service any which way. So the WSET as a course, when it started in 1960s, was a course that was made for importers. Its Court of Master Sommeliers 10 years later was the course that was made for servers. So WSET, what teaches you today is not for service. It is any which way for importers. So I think one of the best things that you can do after doing your WSET is to get into the trade, maybe do sales and marketing, maybe be a, the frontline person for a brand. But yeah, unfortunately, they don't teach you spirits and beers and sake separately.
Right. Thank you, Vin.
Cheers, man.
Sums it up.
All right, so I think we have gone a little overboard of time, but can we take one last question? And it's all the way from Poland. Can we do that?
Sure.
Yes. So we have Dinesh Kumar, all the way from Poland, who wants to ask you a question. Dinesh, are you there?
Sorry if I'm boarding up, like adding too much of boredom to your evening today. I'm sorry, but still. So I actually have experience. I was too much into wines and spirits when I was doing my bachelor's, but now I guess as seeing these days, even in my social life, you add an alcohol word, it's like you can start off a conversation with stranger. That's how I get my visa with the consulate when I talked about Polish vodka to him. So that was a good thing. So I just want to ask you about what you see as a, not about the industry perspective, like having a career, but nowadays companies like Accenture, Deloitte, what they do is to just relax the mind of employees. They just add in a course like getting a wine sommelier inside the company and like having a different twist, like diverting them from a normal corporate world. So how do you see that industry as in coming up as a leisure perspective?
Go for it, guys.
I've spoken too much.
I think the idea is that think of like when you study engineering, it prepares you to do many other applications of that bent of mind, of a scientific way of thinking. So if you're going to study sommellerie or wines or spirits in whichever way, after that it'll be down to you how you apply it. So we know people who've done some very innovative things with that knowledge. I mean, we ourselves became academicians because we preferred to sort of help establish a culture of alcohol in India, which was lacking. Because there was always drinking and it's a hunt for cheap booze, but it wasn't a culture which was as existed in the West. So that's what we've sort of worked towards, try to figure out that education is key. If you're educated, you're aware, and so on. That's been our calling. Other people who chose to be in the service side have done some great job there on defining how the service should happen. There are people who are in the trade side who are figuring out what are the best channels to reach the consumer and make the product more connectable. A lot of our time before the lockdown used to also go to doing corporate events. So I won't say we haven't done them, but we don't necessarily seek them out. In fact, they come looking for us. And Gagan's done events from mixology for adventure groups to we've done wine tastings, we've done wine comparisons, we've done tons of wine data for hotels and restaurants. But generally, we knew who we were doing it for. It was either for a hotel or a brand or an embassy or a country or a consortium who employed our services, which were then sort of disseminated amongst the people that we wanted to educate or make aware. So there are no limits to how you can use the knowledge. But it comes down to what medium you choose. You want to choose Instagram and just do videos. I'll give you a simple example. Gagan and I decided that we'll do these 52 drinks, 52 weeks videos on the IWBS handle. And it just started as a talk that we guys drink and talk about drinks amongst us. Why can't we make it public? So we just started choosing, and Gagan made the plan. And for the first few weeks, we took a little while getting it started. And now we are, I don't know, what, 22, 23 weeks down, I'm sure easily, Gagan? More maybe, I think. And it's got great, and it's just free information out there. We open bottles that we have. Unfortunately, now we have to open 2 bottles because he's at his house, I'm at my house, and we are tasting the same wine. But earlier we could open one, taste it together, talk about the history. So we found another channel of communication with the same knowledge that we had, but now we're preparing it differently. And so it won't be, I think knowledge is never a limit. Knowledge is what opens up the limits, but it depends on you how you wish to exploit it. So I won't say that, and if you're in Poland, and you've managed to connect and get your visa done through having your vodka chats, I think then the market is yours. You should take Indian food there next time. Introduce them to
I
the
guess
lovely snacks.
I won't. I guess I won't
Sorry?
understand the language, but at least I say something about whiskey or something, they start laughing. I'm like, okay, so like there's a new language called as alcohol language that's going on.
Which is good. And while you're there, the one advice I can give you is pick up the language a bit. Because when
Yeah,
you come back or
I'm
go
currently
elsewhere,
speaking trying to
yeah,
speak Polish and
that's great.
Russian.
Because
So
yeah, if you have Russian on your, I'm not saying it's the most useful language out there, but it doesn't go waste. So I think that's what I got of your question, that application remains entirely your prerogative. It is not something that comes defined within the realms of any course. But having said that, WSET is limiting in the fact that you don't know service. So you need to enhance your service skills before you attack it. Otherwise, you will fall short. But given that your skill set is fine, how you utilize it, honestly, is really down to you.
And Dinesh, just to add, an Indian guy going to Poland and teaching Polish about their own vodka is something, something that you have made the entire country proud about, and given a lot of people the light that, listen, if I can do it, you guys can do it as well. And, this is what Magan did in France. He was working at Michelin star restaurants, an Indian guy who in France, I think in those days must have been a rarity any which way.
Brown people do not tell people about Chateau wine.
Is a different thing. I was doing the same thing in Australia, and even today, we guys are confident enough that we can land into any country. And just day before yesterday, we got a wine tasting webinar request from Germany. They said, can you do a session for Germans? Like, listen, we can't talk about their language, but yeah, we can definitely do it. And I think what you said is, something that the industry does, that they will throw in a wine course for you and say, listen, do it, and then let's see what happens. It resonates with me for the simplest of reasons that, initially when I came back to India, we were doing a lot of, these bigger events, and a lot of alcohol would be left after the events, and some of it would come back to my house. And when my family and my cousins used to come home and they would say, what do we have for free to drink? And I'd say, listen, it's not for free. You got to drink it the way I tell you. You have to hold the glass a certain way at a certain temperature, a certain protocol. But yeah, it's for free. So here it is. So first they would sit down and listen to a spiel for 5 minutes, drink the wine, at least act that they are smelling and tasting and all that. But today, I know it for a fact that a lot of them come back and they say, oh, do you have that vintage of that wine that we drank once? They have added, by just a little bit of hand holding, which, as you said, the organizations also do by throwing in a free wine trip or a distillery trip or a brewery trip. They want to just add that to your repertoire. You drink it, you learn the language of it, you enjoy it, and you convey that with the passion to your customer. And that's what makes a professional better than just another server next door. So I think we always say that even if you want to be a good professional, you'll have to drink as well. You have to be the consumer as well once in a while, so that you know how it is to be on the other side and what bullshit you do not want to listen at a restaurant. So that when you go back and wear that uniform the next day and speak in front of the customer, you do not speak those words and annoy them off.
Sure, sir. Thank you for your time, sir. I hope I didn't boredom you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dinesh. For all of you who are attending this webinar, Mr. Gagan Sharma has also shared the email ID that you can get in touch with IWBS. Thank you very much, Mr. Magandeep Singh and Mr. Gagan Sharma, ma'am.
Thank you, both of you, Magandeep and Gagan. I really do appreciate the time taken. I can imagine you'll get a whole host of students because, if there's anyone who knows how to incite and complete passion with wines is Andre, sir. So then they are then again, as I keep using it, chomping at the bit for more. And I think they'll get it with you all. And I honestly, I truly, to everybody that's listening, I wish I was the age where you could start all over again, because it sounds awfully interesting, and there's so much to it that I cannot imagine more students not wanting to do this. I really do look forward to both of you visiting our campus so that you can truly get a taste of Don Bosco hospitality. We look forward to a continued continued association for a very long time, and hopefully see a bunch of sommeliers that can say they graduated from Don Bosco and then went on to working with the two of you. Again, we are looking forward to the junior championship too. And with that, thank you very, very much. Honestly, it's a lot of time that you spared and a lot of questions that you'll answered. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you.
you have a number and our email address and our Instagram
Yes.
and everything now, except our Aadhaar card. Please, anything you need, any question you want us to be answered, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Wonderful.
And thank you, Don Bosco, for giving us the opportunity. I think when you say you have taken too much time, it was such a passionate chat that was happening that we didn't really realize what time it was.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.